On today's show, the Houston Rockets get absolutely embarrassed and collapse in the second half and lose in overtime to a bad New Orleans Pelicans squad. This is a game that needs to serve as a wake-up call for a team that has not looked like legitimate contenders since the calendar turned to December. We're going to break it all down for you right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
My goodness, this game sucked. All right, let's get through this. What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, we're going to be breaking down the Rockets' utterly embarrassing, shameful 133-128 loss in overtime to a 5-win, now 6-win Pelicans squad. A game that they had zero business losing and still found a way to do so. Just completely falling apart, collapsing, disappearing in the second half of this game. There's a lot to unpack from this one. We're going to get into all of it on today's show. We're going to talk about the disappearing act that the defense did in the second half, the lack of execution down the stretch, the inability to capitalize on multiple different opportunities to actually eke out of this one with a win, as ugly as it would have been. Going to get into all the different angles from this one. Of course, want to let you know, thank you so much for making this show part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being one of our awesome everydayers. Misery loves company. So if you're here to listen to me rant and rave about this, like ranting and raving is usually a positive thing, right? Like here to complain about this game, appreciate you because this game sucked. Rockets were up 25 in this game. They blew a 25-point lead. This was one of those games where you're supposed to come out, beat up on a bad team, win the game by the end of the third quarter, rest your starters the entire fourth. Cool, because you got another big matchup against the Nuggets coming up, a matinee game on Saturday, and then that's the first night of a back-to-back because you've got the Kings on Sunday night. So it would have been great to get some additional rest beating up on a bad Pelicans squad. And instead, the Rockets acted like they had won this game after the first 24 minutes. You know, they took a very healthy 22-point lead into halftime. They held the Pelicans to 45 first half points. And then they came out and it's like they were just like, they just stopped trying in the third quarter. It's very frustrating how this team completely took their foot off the gas and just got away from everything that built them the lead in the first place and acted like they had basically already won the game. And the Pelicans, nobody told the Pelicans that they had lost the game because they came out and they flat out won that third quarter. They dropped 38 points on the Rockets because defensively, Houston started gambling. They started taking risks on defense. They stopped playing with physicality. They had zero answer for Saddiq Bey, 29 points, Trey Murphy, 27 points. It couldn't defend a traffic cone in the second half of this game. And even still, as bad as things were in that third quarter, still had a healthy 16-point lead going into the fourth. Should have still been able to coast and keep things going and keep the Pelicans at relatively like arm's distance, right? But Pels had all the momentum top of the fourth quarter. They had a couple back-to-back. They had a couple quick buckets from Jose Alvarado, and then Derek Queen hit a shot, and then Herb Jones got a dunk, and then Jordan Poole hit a big three, and suddenly it's a single-digit game, 101-92. And Ime Udoka has to panic and reinsert his starters And instead of getting the starters some much needed rest ahead of these, this next back-to-back and another big matchup, but suddenly you're in a dogfight with the 5-win Pelicans. So the Rockets brought this upon themselves by not taking their opponent seriously and by just, I cannot remember the last time I saw this team have such an utter lack of focus and discipline and just like game time execution than this game. I firmly believe this is the worst loss of this Rocket season, bar none. And I think it's arguably the worst loss of the entire Ime Udoka era. Like, this was an embarrassing loss. It was a shameful loss. And watching it like play out in real time, just watching it go, yeah, here it comes. Sometimes you watch a game and you just have those vibes and you're like, yeah, this team's going to mess around and lose. And that's exactly what this game felt like. After only giving up 45 points in the first half, the Rockets gave up 38 in the third quarter and 36 in the fourth. 74 points given up in the second half of this game. And on offense, they only scored 20 in the fourth. And that's what led to overtime. And despite how poorly they played, despite how awful this game had become, they still had multiple chances at the end of this game to absolve themselves of their sins and actually scrape out a dub. And they couldn't even do that. The Rockets bigs, with about a minute left in the game, Steven Adams has a possession where he snatches like 3 straight offensive rebounds and finally comes away with the ball and gets fouled with a little over a minute left in the game. Rockets are leading 116-115. He splits the pair of free throws, so they go up 2. You come down, and Trey Murphy missed a shot. Good defense, cool. You survive. Then you come back down on the other end, and Alperen Sengun gets the rebound off the Trey Murphy miss and gets immediately fouled. Rockets trot back down to the free throw line. Okay, little bit of breathing room. 45 seconds left in the game. Alperen Sengun to the free throw line, right? Should be able to at least make it a 2-possession game to give the Rockets a little bit of breathing room. Bricks both free throws. That's just lack of focus. That is just an embarrassing lack of focus from Alperen Sengun. Misses both free throws. Pels call timeout. They come back down. And Saddiq Bey, who the Rockets had zero answer for this entire game, and because Sengun couldn't hit either free throw, right, the Pels were able to settle for a Saddiq Bey like driving, midi pull-up. And that's what tied the game up. And then Ime Thompson comes down, and credit to Ime Thompson. He was pretty awesome this game. At one point, he was a perfect 8 of 8 from the floor. He hits Derek Queen with this fantastic Euro step, like lay-in, right? And winds up putting the Rockets ahead 119-117. But then you come back down on the other end. Derek Queen gets sent to the free throw line. He got fouled. And so from there, he hits the 2 free throws, and then that's that. And the Rockets had 9 seconds left on the clock and elected not to call timeout. They drive the ball up, and Alperen Sengun has a chance. Alperen Sengun drives the ball in and smokes what would have been the game-winning layup. And in a game where Kevin Durant had 32 points on 15 shots, it remains all the more puzzling why the Rockets elected to, granted, Sengun's had some awesome moments in the clutch this season, but it is unbelievable how often this Rockets team forgets that they are playing alongside Kevin Durant and their utter refusal to just put the ball in his hands at the end of a game. He's Kevin frickin' Durant. Let him be the one that decides the game. Let him take the final shot. And it's, you can't just point fingers at, you can't point fingers at Sengun and say it's his fault, because you also have to look at Ime Udoka. You also have to look at KD. It's KD. He needs to demand the basketball. If KD tells Sengun, give me the damn ball, he's going to give him the ball. But KD, is letting this hierarchy run all over the place, right? It's a mess. And even still, not only that, you had those chances at the end of the game. You also had chances at the end of overtime. As badly as the Rockets continued to play, they had not one, but two incredible looks from Reed Sheppard, down 3 on the final play of overtime. And Reed Sheppard got 2 wide open looks at it to tie the game back up and force a second overtime and clanked both of them. Rockets had so many chances to make up for their mistakes and at least scrape by with a W in this game, and they blew every single opportunity along the way. They earned this loss. Like, they deserved this loss, and they absolutely did not deserve to win this game with the way that they played in the second half of this one. Coming up, I want to unpack some of the offensive and defensive issues from this game. Glaring issues that are symptoms of a much larger problems with this Rockets team than just this one game in particular. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. The season's heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just for your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun. Because every player has their bag, with DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely immaculate. Because look, there are nights when your team just flat out stresses you out or pisses you off. Maybe you just lost to a 5-win Pelicans team. Let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need that sweet treat right now. So from tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season delivered right to your doorstep. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't really match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances. Because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Rocket Money finds subscriptions that you forgot you were paying for and helps you clean them up quickly. Seeing all your spending on one dashboard makes it so much easier to understand where your money is actually going. So take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Okay. I'm conflicted as to which was actually worse in this game, the defense or the offense. Because for me, the defense is frankly, a lot of times defense boils down to effort and execution and attention to detail, and the effort's a really big part of it. Like, if you're up 20, 25 on a bad team, suddenly you're not going to make that extra push to close out hard on a three-point shooter or to be a little extra physical on a drive to the rim or that extra box out to prevent, an offensive rebound back tap or little things like that, right? It doesn't help the Pelicans were shooting the absolute lights out of the ball in the second half. In the second half of this game, Pelicans wound up shooting a blistering 70%, well, 69.2%, not nice for the Rockets, 69.2% from the floor. They just flat out weren't missing shots in the second half of this game. It was absurd, some of the shots that they were hitting, but a large portion of that was the Rockets defense was just nowhere to be found. They provided such little resistance in the second half. They were gambling. They weren't staying in front of their guys. They were making risky plays, giving up straight line drives, giving up wide open shots. It was a mess defensively. But defense is one of those easier things to fix where it's just like, if the Rockets just lock in and try a little bit harder, I hate that analysis because it's just like, just give more of a damn and like the defense will look better. But that's like, defense is often about just effort. And the Rockets just put up a very piss poor effort in this game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The effort was abysmal in the second half. A much bigger problem was the just complete lack of any sensible offensive hierarchy. And this has been a problem that has plagued this team all season long. And it's a mess. And I hate it because it would be really easy to just be like, well, they don't have a point guard, so that's why the offense is a mess. And I hate it because it's somewhat true. And there's the flaws that this team currently has. Because here's the problem: is this team still has the pieces to be a legitimate contender. They've got the talent level to be there, but they've got a lot of very glaring issues on both sides of the ball that need to be fixed and addressed before we can comfortably start putting them in legitimate title contention conversations. Title contending teams don't lose games like this. Legitimate championship caliber teams don't mess around and lose in overtime to a 5-win squad. They don't. And here's my biggest gripe with the offense is this Rockets team, it's like they try their best to forget that they're not playing, that they're playing alongside Kevin Durant. It makes no sense to me. Kevin Durant finished this game with only 15 shot attempts. And yes, the Pelicans were blitzing and doubling and being super aggressive with him at certain stretches of this game. And KD making the right basketball decision, right? Getting off the ball and getting it to the open man. And then the Rockets having these 4-on-3 possessions where they should be able to take advantage of what the Pelicans defense is doing. But here's the rub. When your outlet pass is to Steven Adams or Josh Okogie or Jabari Smith Jr. out of some of those double teams, those guys aren't guys that are really going to be able to bend the defense or capitalize on those moments. And that goes back to coaching. That goes back to Ime Udoka. That goes back to these very questionable lineups with the fact that the Rockets don't have many players who can put the ball on the floor and make something happen, right? Create something for one of their teammates. A lot of their actions, all of their actions have to basically go through Kevin Durant or Alperen Sengun in some capacity to generate a high quality look. And when they don't, when the ball winds up in the hands of somebody else, sometimes it's a train wreck. Most of the time it's a train wreck. And when you go and look at like the shot distribution from this game, it's so frustrating to look at. Kevin Durant, 32 points on 12 of 15 shooting. Phenomenal game. Struggled with some turnovers. Had 6 turnovers. This is now his, in the last 7 games, he's had 5 games out of the last 7 with 5 or more turnovers. The turnovers are a major problem for KD, and he needs to be able to cut down on those. Like some of it's just lazy, sloppy passes. But outside of the turnovers, really strong game for KD, right? But even KD's not innocent, right? Like everybody played poorly in this game, top to bottom. But here's the rub. You look at this shot distribution, 5 of 18 for Jabari Smith Jr. Took 3 more shots than KD, bricked 13 of them. Alperen Sengun, 11 of 26. 26 shots for Sengun. And look, a couple of those here or there, 2 or 3 of them might have been like offensive tip-ins, whatever. That's still, even if you cut that number, even if you count the 3 tip-ins, let's say that, right? 11 for 23, that's still abysmal efficiency. That is an awful shooting night for Alperen Sengun. And he needs to be better. We talked so much this offseason about his inability to finish in and around the rim, his lack of efficiency, settling for those like mid-range push shots and jumper. Like, he needs to be better. He's a big man. He needs to be able to finish at a better efficiency level in and around the rim. He's missing too many shots. And he's frankly taking too many shots. You can't take 26 shots and go 11 for 26. That's ridiculous. Steven Adams, 2 for 10. And a couple of those were tip-ins as well, sure. But because of the way that the Pelicans were defending stuff, Steven Adams was forced into like taking like shots out of the short roll offensively, which is like that's just bad offense. You don't want Steven Adams taking those shots. Those shots are a win for the defense. Reed Sheppard, 4 of 12. And arguably Reed Sheppard should have taken more shots. More shots from 3 for Reed Sheppard. He was 3 for 10. But the fact, like, there is zero reason why Kevin Durant shouldn't be averaging at minimum 20 shot attempts per game. And again, this, you can't, like, it's so hard to, the blame doesn't fall on any one person is the problem. Some of it's with Ime Udoka and the coaching. Some of it's with KD's teammates, right? And them not looking for him, not involving him enough, not remembering, oh, hey, we're playing with Kevin freaking Durant, right? And some of it's on KD for not just demanding the basketball. He's the star player. You have to demand the ball and put your fingerprints on a game. You cannot just be, this was the same gripe that I had with Jalen Green back in the playoffs, right? You cannot just be content with letting yourself be schemed out of a game. You are Kevin Durant. I don't care that a double team's coming your way. Beat the double. Star players beat double teams all the time. Split the defenders down the middle or drive left, drive right, go to, get around the double team. Make your move before the double shows up. And then the last piece of this puzzle is, Kevin Durant is having to play a lot more on ball right now than he's probably wanting to, than he thought he would have to when he came to this team, because the Rockets don't have a consistent enough offensive initiator outside of Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun. And Alp can initiate offense, but Alp doesn't, they don't have a legitimate floor general who can just get the ball to KD in his spots reliably and consistently for him to be able to be utilized off ball at the level that he probably would prefer to be utilized, right? And that's a problem. And that, just go all the way back to square one. That's the Fred VanVleet injury, right? But the Rockets do have other options that they can lean into besides that, right? And so offensively, as good as Kevin Durant was in this game, he should have been better. The way that he was playing, he should have dropped 40 plus in this game. Should have had way more shot attempts. And there isn't any one specific person that you can blame for that, is the problem. The blame is for everybody in why this Rockets team is playing the way that they are offensively. They're a mess on offense, right? The hierarchy is all over the place, and it needs to be fixed. And ultimately, that responsibility falls in the lap of Ime Udoka. He needs to be the one to put his fist down and say, hey, we have Kevin Durant on our team. We need the offense to run through him, and he needs to be the one taking these shots. We don't need Jabari taking 18 shots. We don't need Sengun taking 26 shots. We don't need Steven Adams taking 10 shots off the bench or Reed Sheppard taking 12. If you carve down a few of those attempts from every one of those other guys, you get KD up to 25 shot attempts, we're probably talking about a comfortable Rockets win instead of a very frustrating meltdown loss. It's that simple. Coming up, I want to talk about some of the other glaring issues that were on display in this game, issues that far extend beyond this Pelicans game and are issues that the Rockets are going to need to address if they want to have a chance at a deep playoff run this season. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save hours every single week. And knowing you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonnba and get 3 months for free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnba. One more time, that's gusto.com/lockedonnba. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Okay. How do I even want to start this? This is something that I would probably need to spin and try and unpack over the course of an entire show, not just reacting to one specific game. But this Rockets team does have some very glaring issues, right? They've got problems. And I hope that they are able to address these problems as the season continues to unfold. But we're a little more than a quarter of the way through the year, and these problems aren't going away anytime soon. And it's up to Ime Udoka and the Rockets coaching staff to find fixes for said problems. And so here's where some of it lands. And look, yes, this Rockets team is not fully healthy, right? You're not Fred VanVleet ain't walking through that door. They will get Tari, Eason, and DFS back soon, right? So that's encouraging, because one part of the issue is some of these lineups that Ime is having to resort to are problematic in nature, right? He's got his penciled in starting four: KD, Sengun, Ime, Jabari. But it feels like there's still problems outside of that, because here's the issue. Offensively, this team needs Reed Sheppard on the floor. There's not a single other player on the roster that can. Well, first off, there's nobody on the roster that can do what Fred VanVleet can do. But Reed Sheppard's the closest you get to that level of player. But Reed Sheppard leaves a lot to be desired defensively. He's grown a lot on that side of the ball, but he gets targeted. And he is absolutely a defensive liability still at this stage in his career. And so Ime Udoka, being a defensive-minded head coach, strays away from Reed Sheppard. In this game, Reed Sheppard, 7 assists to 0 turnovers in his 27 minutes of run. And he wound up spending the entire fourth quarter and all of overtime on the bench, despite the fact that the Rockets' offense completely fell out from under them. They were abysmal on offense in this game. After looking so good, so crisp, so awesome in the first half, in the fourth quarter, they were 9 of 23 from the floor, just 39% shooting. They had as many turnovers as they did assists in the fourth quarter. 4 turnovers, 4 assists. And then in overtime, just 3 for 10 shooting. And it's because their offense oftentimes just boils down to Kevin Durant or Alperen Sengun isolation play. Because even when KD gets doubled, they weren't taking advantage of those double teams. If you have Reed Sheppard out there, it gives you another way to attack. Reed Sheppard can actually run pick and roll with Sengun or with KD. You can put the ball in Reed's hands, and he can run the offense, and he's got good enough court vision to make those right passes to open shooters, whether it's Jabari or Ime in the dunker spot. I mean, Reed had so many great passes in this game. And yes, there are going to be bumps and bruises along the way with a second-year guard as your starting point guard, and defenses or opposing teams are going to try and, put him in the torture chamber and attack him relentlessly. But he's only going to be able to get better is if he experiences it, right? And Ime, being this mastermind defensive head coach, needs to be able to find ways to scheme around that, find ways to protect and hide Reed Sheppard the exact same way the Warriors used to do with Steph Curry, until he gets to a level where he can hold his own a little bit more effectively on defense. So Ime's problem is he resorts to, his defensive lineups, or even worse, the double big lineup, which is a disaster on offense. The double big lineup is not benefiting Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun the way that it was benefiting the Rockets last season. This year, it's just clogging everything up. Because unfortunately, what happens is when you have Steven Adams and Amin Thompson and Josh Okogie all out there at the same time, you've got 3 non-shooters that the defense does not care about whatsoever unless they're within 5 feet of the basket. And then all it does is it lets defenses completely load up on KD and Alperen Sengun. So it comes back to some of the lineups have been trash. The floor spacing is abysmal. And yes, getting Tari Eason back and getting DFS healthy and letting him put on his Rockets jersey and making his Rockets debut will help those problems considerably. But even on the defensive side of things, I'm still not fully convinced that the Rockets' best starting 4, if you will, is Sengun, KD, Ime, and Jabari. Because unless you add in another point of attack defensive piece, then that's a lot on one guy, on Ime Thompson, to be able to contain threats on the perimeter. And unfortunately, this Rockets defense at times has looked pretty rough around the edges this season. And it's not a slight to either of KD or Jabari, who are both above average defenders and very solid for their respective positions. But I had the same concern coming into the season where if you start KD and Jabari, neither of them are great point of attack guys. Like, they're switchable, they're versatile, yeah, but neither of those guys are great guys when it comes to fighting around a screen on the perimeter, sticking to a smaller player. Like, and that's caused issues for this Rockets team this year. I'll be completely honest. If this team was healthy right now at this exact moment, if everybody was healthy, minus Fred VanVleet, I think my starting lineup would be Reed Sheppard, DFS, Ime Thompson, Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun. I think I'd have to move Jabari to the bench. And that's not a slight to Jabari. Jabari's been awesome, and he's improved this year. The offense has looked like he's taken a step forward. But defensively, I feel like that gives you a more well-rounded team where you get two legitimate point of attack defenders in Ime Thompson and DFS. Another guy who just knows his role and can lean into that, right? And arguably gives Jabari a better chance to have more of an offensive role, a bigger offensive responsibility coming off the bench. I don't know. But this team's got glaring holes on both sides of the floor that need to be addressed. And it feels like the easiest way to resolve some of the offensive mess for this team is to just lean into Reed Sheppard. He's the only legitimate point guard on the roster. Ime Thompson is not doing great as a point guard. He's not. Like, he has actively regressed this season. And I think it's almost unfair to keep kind of trying to shoehorn him into that role when it's tough, because it's not that I don't believe that he can't maybe get there one day or whatever, but it's just, it's rough to watch, and it's taking him away from the things that he's so elite at. So let Ime Thompson go back to the role that he had last season, right? Let Reed Sheppard run the show. Let him be the point guard. Lean into it, right? Embrace it, because the offense just looks better when he's out there, and he gives as close to a replacement to Fred VanVleet as you could realistically get with this squad. And then defensively, yeah, getting back a couple of your key defensive pieces in Tari, Eason, and getting DFS suited up will certainly help on defense, because then you're not going to have those two guys from a spacing perspective too, because Josh Okogie's kind of come back down to earth with his three-point shooting, unfortunately. And teams, frankly, still don't honor Josh Okogie as the three-point shooter. Like, he's not on the scouting report as a knockdown three-point shooter. But DFS, Tari Eason, absolutely. Teams will not help off of those guys in the corners. Or if they do, then it should be a wide open three. It should be a knockdown three-point shooter, or a knockdown, a knockdown three from the corner. And so this team has some issues that it needs to resolve. And some of those will get better just like naturally by getting those two players back and healthy, but they still need to be able to figure out how to get Kevin Durant the ball in positions to be successful, especially at the end of games. They've still been awful in crunch time this season. And the only way that gets better is if you actually get Reed Sheppard those crunch time reps, right? I was completely appalled that Reed Sheppard, for as good as he had played, yeah, he wasn't hitting, a ton of shots in this game, just 4 of 12 shooting is what he finished with. He was 4 of 10 going into those two final 3-pointers, and 3 for 8 from downtown going into those two final shots. But he was cold. He'd been sitting for, I don't know, 14 minutes of game time, basically the entire fourth quarter, most of the fourth quarter, and then all of overtime until that very final possession where he comes in ice cold off the bench, expected to knock down those 2 shots. Like, I'm not going to harp on him too much for that. Like, that's a tough ask for anybody. This team's upsetting me right now. Oh man. My only solace is knowing that you guys are going through this with me, because this was just a tough game to watch. Look, I'm not like out on this team by any stretch of the imagination. They still have Kevin Durant. They've still got Alperen Sengun. They've got a ton of talent. And we've seen them go toe-to-toe with some of the NBA's best this season, right? But they got some serious, like very glaring issues that they need to address and figure out. And if they don't, then yeah, this team might look like a first round exit by the, once the playoffs get here. And hopefully, if there's one silver lining to come out of this game, it's that this game will hopefully serve as a major wake-up call for some of these glaring problems and force Ime Udoka and his staff to start addressing some of these problems and force the guys on the roster to like wake up and realize that they have a chance to do something really special this season, even without Fred VanVleet healthy. This team can still be a contender. This team can still play at a title contention level, but they need to start taking it seriously. They need to play like a contender every single game. You don't see the Thunder or the Nuggets going out there doing crap like this. Like those are legitimate contending teams that are taking this stuff seriously every single game. This Rockets team has some growing up to do and they've got to address some of these problems. I'm optimistic that they can, but hopefully this is that inflection point of the season where they galvanize, they come together. And I'll tell you what, there's no better way to wash the taste out of a bad loss out of your mouth like this than to come out and actually take care of business against a Nuggets team that's already sunned you twice this season. So if the Rockets can come out next game and actually take care of business against the Nuggets, I will feel a lot better about this team than I currently do after this really, really ugly loss against a bad Pelicans squad. So with that, I want your thoughts from this game. What went wrong in your eyes? What are some of the issues with this Rockets team? Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.